Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Mitt. On this channel, I'll talk about stocks, investing, and finance. And today is a very special day because today is the inaugural episode of the initial series that we're going to be doing on this channel, which is Why Has Cathie Wood Invested into X Stock? I think this is going to be a really fun series over the next couple of years, which I'm probably going to be doing it over. And it's going to be really fun to give a deep dive into a lot of these stocks. Couple reasons I'm doing this series, and then we're going to talk about inaugural episode today, which is Twitter. Number one, I have a keen focus in Cathie Wood's inner investment philosophy. I mean, I am a new investor and I'm getting into investing. I have $29,000 in a stock that she has about $1 billion in. So obviously there's a lot of correlations between some of the things that I'm philosophically interested in, like disruptive innovation, and some of the things that she's obviously interested. Most of the world knows who Warren Buffett is. Most of the world does not know who Cathie Wood is. And I kind of like that because she's emerging into the investment scene and really becoming a true superstar with a philosophy that either she's going to be right about and make literally hundreds of billions, or she's going to be wrong about and lose all of her money. And the confidence and conviction that she has in terms of the research and analysis that her team does about why this philosophy is going to be right long-term makes me really excited as an investor and makes stocks and investing really exciting. And I think that's what a lot of people who are new to stocks and investing are getting into some of the core positions that she has, because they're like, oh yeah, I do think that company is going to really change everything about that industry. And I do want to get in early before, 2030. So these are really, really interesting stocks to analyze in the first place. So that's the first reason I'm really interested in it. Number two, I really want to do this series for people who don't know about the stocks that she's investing in, because I'm just like you. The only reason I know about those stocks is because I do some research and I try to understand those stocks. Obviously, these stocks like Twitter and Teladoc and Zoom, these are things that a lot of people are using in their daily lives. So it's really interesting to see why one fund is putting, at some levels, billions of dollars of capital behind these positions to ultimately see how they turn out in the future. These videos are not meant to do the deepest dives of the numbers, but rather to introduce some basic elementary concepts of why this stock has potential, why ARK is investing in it from a philosophical perspective, and then some sort of basic numbers on revenues and how the stock has been growing, how it's been performing over the past couple of years. And then ultimately, if there's some interest for these videos, then we're going to go deeper and do more analysis into these stocks, just like I've done with Palantir. Obviously, I have a very big position in Palantir, which is why I've made a lot of videos on that stock. First of all, I used to never use Twitter. Now, I did use Twitter back in high school when a lot of my friends were on it, and it was nice to go through the tweets and interact with them. But after high school, all throughout college, I think it was a good 5-6 years, I completely stopped using Twitter. I didn't have any resemblance of caring for Twitter at all, right? Twitter was just an afterthought for me in terms of a social network. It was always Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, even Snapchat over Twitter for me. So I came back to Twitter as I started my startup in 2021, and I started to understand, Twitter has a lot of potential because the connections that we're making, the people I was learning to understand, the content that I was consuming, it was pretty informational, pretty rich, and the connections that I were making were actually leading to some real life things happening for me that were not happening on LinkedIn, which we're going to get into in a second. So I felt that Twitter had a lot more potential. And as I started becoming more engaged in it, I truly did understand what it meant to become a daily active user and an addict to Twitter. So first thing I want to talk about on Twitter is that it's an app for people who are chatty. People who are chatty, meaning people who have tons and tons of ideas, don't have the time or the capacity or the energy to make a YouTube video and edit it, or to make a podcast and flesh out their thoughts, but rather just want to get their thoughts out there in real time. And those are the types of people. So you think of people like journalists, people who are commenting on sports, people who are commenting on politics, people who are in the business sector that want to, propagandize their ideas, obviously because they want to build their personal brand, because if you build your personal brand, then you have a much better chance of building that to leverage for your business. That's what Twitter is focused for the average everyday person who wants to connect with their friends, like pictures, and post what they ate on their breakfast on their story. Twitter doesn't really serve a purpose because you're kind of talking into an abyss, right? You're not really talking to people who genuinely care about that stuff, meaning the friend graph on Twitter, the social graph, is not really as complex and nuanced as it is, it's way more complex and nuanced than Instagram. Instagram is I went to high school with these people. I kind of care about their opinion. I went to college. This is my friend's girlfriend or my friend's ex-girlfriend that now I'm trying to get with. So I'm going to put these pictures. That's more of what Instagram is. And it's more intuitive and natural, which is why Instagram has 2.5 billion people on it and Twitter has 200 million. So that's the first thing to understand about Twitter. Now, a couple of things with the stock. They IPO'd for $26 in 2013. They hit a high at around 80 later this year, but now they're at around $42. Not even doubling, right, from when they IPO'd, and it's been 8 years we're about to go into 9 years with 2022. So that's kind of insane. For context, Facebook, similar social network, IPO'd for $38 in 2012. 9 years later, it's at $340, almost 900% return on that investment. And Facebook, the company, has made an immense amount of progress when you think of what they've done with the metaverse that they're entering into, when you think of what they've done with Oculus, Instagram, WhatsApp accusations or acquisitions. They've done so much to build up the value of this network that had 845 million people going to it as monthly active users when they IPO'd in 2012 to now, literally, I don't know if there's anyone in the world who doesn't have a Facebook account. Now, there's a lot of people who aren't using Facebook as much as they used to do because Facebook has fundamentally changed in terms of why people use it. But if you have a product that you want to advertise, there are billions of people waiting on the behind the screens on Facebook across a variety of different countries where if you want to access them, that is the place for the cheapest amount of money you could possibly imagine to get in front of people. Now, that's obviously led to a lot of consequences and a lot of different things, but it's also led to businesses being able to actually put some advertising money into Facebook, which has led Facebook to make, $28-30 billion of revenue per quarter, which is absolutely insane. On the other hand, Twitter has 200 million daily active users. Their IPO has basically failed. I mean, in the context of if you've been a shareholder, you've been struggling with this stock for a very long time just to get somewhat of a return. And they really haven't introduced elements that could allow the company to not only monetize, but allow the company to grow at exponential rates. You think of these social networks, they're supposed to leverage things called network effects. And network effects are a new user adds value to the network because they are contributing in some capacity, which is giving the value an overall boost in efficiency and effectiveness and value. If I'm a new user, I post tweets, that's more content for Twitter. But if I consume tweets, that's also more attention on Twitter because now I'm creating and I'm consuming. And that leverages their business model, which we're going to get into in a second, which is advertising, to actually have some efficiency towards it, right? And to actually have some ROI for the advertisers at the end of the day. When Twitter can't increase the amount of people that are ultimately using the service at scale, right? There's only 200 million daily active users, then you don't have an exponentially growing network at the end of the day. You just have the same people talking in the same place, which is good because you need to keep them there. But every company needs to have growth, and the stock price is only going to result in growth if you are actually growing the company. So that begs the question then, which is why does Cathie Wood have about 15 million shares combined through the Ark KK fund and the Ark W fund? I think she has about 5 million in one and about 10.4 in the other. Why does she have 15 million shares of the company? And why has she been buying the dip now that the CEO of Twitter recently left about 2 weeks ago, Jack Dorsey, and their CTO became the new CEO? Why is she bullish on this and ultimately buying the dip on this? A couple of reasons that she highlighted that are really important to think about. Number one is this concept of knowledge workers, right? So knowledge workers are really interesting because as I talked about above, these are the people that are chatty. These are the people that really have ideas, thoughts, and opinions on the world, and they have to get them out there immediately. And if they don't get them immediately, they either lose the attention that they're trying to salvage for the work that they are creating, or they lose the momentum behind the thing that they are ultimately trying to cover. When you think of someone like a journalist, if a breaking news story is happening and you are not breaking the news or you are not covering the news, people forget about breaking news, forget an hour later, like a second later, right? It's like, oh, it matters, then it doesn't matter. And it's like that moment in which attention is siphoned into one place and you as a knowledge worker have the ability to capture that attention and ultimately monetize it long term or in the short term. And there's ways you can do both that we'll talk about in a second, is the basis for you as a knowledge worker to have a career by working to create knowledge. Working to create knowledge is an incredibly privileged job. Being a YouTuber, being a journalist, when I mean privilege, I don't mean ideologically. I just mean there are people who have to go to work every day and do physical stuff and have to work really hard. Whereas you are just sitting on your computer, sending out tweets, you're getting likes and retweets. And because of that, you're building influence. That influence is then leading to monetization opportunities. Most people cannot do that. So you think about something like a knowledge worker, what is their alternative when it comes to getting people's attention? I mean, for a real-time messaging app in which there's a trend happening, you can use hashtags, you can rank for things, you can immediately gain followers. If you've said something witty or interesting or funny and people are able to retweet that and other people like the thing that was retweeted and they want to see more of that in their feed in an instant. I mean, Elon Musk gets 130,000 followers a day on Twitter. That's partly the reason they don't have to spend money on advertising, because he can say something and reach millions, right? So as a marketing tool, it is one of the most powerful networks in the world. And if you are a knowledge worker, this matters a lot. Now, the question is, why is Cathie bullish on knowledge workers? I think ultimately the reason she's bullish on this is because she's bullish on the creator economy. The creator economy, in a nutshell, is the great resignation that's happening right now, right? People leaving their jobs and either starting their own businesses or creating content online for the internet. Content consumption and the ability to consume content is higher, is the demand for that is higher than ever. So people want to consume content, which means there needs to be more people to create content because content gets boring and we need more and more people. Like everyone can get a slice of this attention pie, especially as these platforms are getting bigger and bigger and attention is becoming stronger and stronger in terms of it being allocated to these platforms. So at that point, if you are resigning from your job and you're trying to create content, Twitter is a place where you would go to get that sort of knowledge worker aesthetic in order to get attention for whatever you're trying to build. If you're trying to build a business, you need to get attention as well. And, for me and my startup, because we're trying to build the business and make it big, we had to interact with Twitter. There's so many people that we could benefit off seeing us on Twitter, that we could benefit off them following me and seeing my tweets about my thoughts, that like it really, really makes sense to be in that place and post in that area. So from a overview perspective of is the value proposition of Twitter meaningful? Yes, she is correct that the knowledge worker and the knowledge worker economy is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's not going away, right? People are not going to start signing up to be a New York Times journalist. They're going to keep signing up to create their own Substacks and be their own journalists and report on the news in their own way. So their personal brand being leveraged through Twitter is a phenomenal resource, and it should translate into value for the company if you think about it from that perspective. So that's the first thing. Number two is this idea of NFTs. I think this idea is like whatever. It's kind of silly to me, like that you need a verification platform for NFTs. It's the least convincing of the arguments. NFTs, non-fungible tokens, did some video on those. I'll link them in the description. Basically, they only matter if there is enough scarcity and authentication for NFTs to be real. So like that picture of a rock that someone paid $1 million for, it only matters if they can verify through a blockchain technology that they are the owners of that rock. If Twitter is building out an internal system where you could just, through your Twitter account, which are a lot of the people in the NFT community are on Twitter, that's where a lot of the real-time engagement happens, are able to just like press a button and boom, you have verified that you own this piece of thing, and now you can actually sell it for more value and you can transfer that ownership all through Twitter without connecting to something else. That's obviously very valuable, right, at that place, and that leads to the NFT community being able to use Twitter as a resource. Now, this assumes that the NFT community will grow exponentially over the next 10, 20 years. I don't know if that's going to happen. I mean, I'm bullish on it. It could happen, but if it doesn't happen, then I don't know why Twitter is valuable for NFTs. Obviously, it is good right now, good in the moment. The NFT trend, because it is a trend right now, it has to become ingrained within the fabric of society, like the internet was ingrained in the fabric of society for everything, baseball tickets, buying things from stores, becoming NFTized, if that's a word, in order for, I think, this to reflect in Twitter's value long term. Those are sort of the two opportunities that she sees for Twitter at scale. Now, monetization. We got to talk about this. How is Twitter making money? Twitter has sucked at making money for a very long time. Their business model is advertising, and advertising is cool, but advertising is only really cool when the ads are working and the ads are phenomenally effective. Facebook is an example to this, right? $30 billion a year or quarter in terms of advertising revenue. YouTube, $7 billion in advertising revenue for a quarter. These ads are effective, and they're primarily because they're based on two things: YouTube and Google for search terms. Obviously, search shows intent, so there's a very, very easy way to monetize on that from an advertising perspective. Facebook, interests, right? So if you liked a photo of a water bottle for some reason, that water bottle ad's going to pop up and you're just so much more likely to click on it. And that's why advertisers keep going back to the platform, because it works. Like the ads actually work. Twitter, the ads work, but from a user, as I've used it, I've never seen an ad that's meaningful to being clicked on. Like if you promote your tweet, it's really weird, right? Like people don't really do that, or they're not supposed to do that. What I've seen Twitter be used that as a brand play. So like when Spotify Wrapped came out, Spotify Wrapped promoted their Spotify Wrapped trending hashtag on Twitter, which is like that makes sense, right? Because everyone's posting their Spotify Wrapped, so like it makes sense for them to give it an extra boost with promotion. A Netflix show comes out, Netflix wants to get more people to just know about it, so they make it trending on Twitter. But like from a immediately conversion, like you just put the ad and then I see the ad and then I click on something and I buy something, that doesn't really happen. That really happens more on YouTube ads, like mid-rolls, pre-rolls. It got my attention. I see the video, it makes sense. And then I click the call to action and I buy something, or on Facebook or on TikTok. But with Twitter, the ads I see are for like cars. And when you think of a car ad, cars are not going to sell you a car from an ad. They're going to sell you the branding of a Honda or a Buick or whatever. So you're going to know about it more as you think about it later throughout your day. And because it's going to be ingrained in your head, next time you go to buy a car, maybe you choose that brand. And that's where I see Twitter advertisements as. Now, Twitter has phenomenal amounts of data because the things you retweet and the things you liked are all rooted in words. And if it's all rooted in words, then that means that if you like a tweet about a certain type of Dunkin' Donuts coffee, like that's immediately put into an algorithm that says, oh, Dunkin' Donuts coffee was the tweet they liked. This means that XYZ, they're likely to care about Dunkin' Donuts. We're going to show them this ad. And like, it makes sense. The problem is they don't have the user growth to justify more and more advertising revenue. And they don't have the daily active usage as something like a TikTok or an Instagram to be able to justify that advertising is the long-term play for this company, which is why they've introduced some new monetization models. They've introduced live shopping in partnership with Walmart. Will that work? I don't know. A lot of companies are trying to do live shopping, but like, will people really start buying stuff on Twitter? Maybe. I don't really know. Twitter Blue, which is like this $2.99 a month, and you get to like have these unique features where you can like bookmark stuff and like save stuff and change the tabs of your home screen. From what I've heard, the people that are using it, it hasn't changed their experience that much because it hasn't gotten rid of the ads. So like when you think of a subscription service, yes, reoccurring revenue, subscriptions, awesome. But if it's not getting rid of the ads, why am I really subscribing? What is the value to this? So I don't really think that's a game changer. And then they have super followers where like, it's kind of like Patreon, right? Like I can follow you and pay you X dollars per month for your tweets because I really like your tweets or I see exclusive tweets. And then Twitter takes like a small percentage off the money from the super follow. Again, I don't think that's that important because it's like, it's just tweets at the end of the day. Like, do you love someone's tweets that much? So you're willing to pay them $5-6 a month just to see their tweets or exclusive tweets? I don't know. I don't see the value proposition necessarily there. So ultimately, my take on this, on her being bullish on Twitter, is for one single reason, and that's the creator economy getting bigger. I don't see monetization opportunities that strong for Twitter right now. I really don't see this NFT thing as like that phenomenal, especially because we don't know if it's a trend or not. And I don't really see the live shopping or the Twitter Blue or the super followers as like these things that are going to push it to the next level, that are going to get it to go from $40 to $200 in the next 5-6 years. For Cathie to be right on this, she has to be right on two things. One, product innovations are going to happen, and product innovations that happen on Twitter are going to launch Twitter into mainstream consciousness. Now, that sounds kind of crazy because it's like when things are trending, they're trending on Twitter, right? Everyone's talking about it on Twitter. And that's what I thought as I've been using Twitter over the past couple months. But then I realized people actually don't care. Like, there's a segment of the population using Twitter. And again, the segment is 200 million people, which is nothing in the grand scheme of social media. Like, you think it's trending because it's happening on Twitter, but a lot of people are just not consuming the tweets. They're like getting their news from a video or from like an Instagram post. It's not all happening on Twitter at one place. So I think they would have to introduce product innovations that get people to get on Twitter, to get the news, to get updates. That would have to happen in order for user growth to occur. Number two is this idea of the knowledge worker economy. The knowledge worker economy has to grow at an exponential rate. Not an exponential rate, but the creator economy in general, or the money being introduced to the creator economy, has to grow at an exponential rate, which will then lead more and more people to want to use Twitter because it's a real-time place, whether you have a podcast or a business or whatever, for you to get immediate attention and for you to leverage that attention to drive traffic just by a link being in your bio, right? And it's more efficient than Instagram because you don't have to like take a picture or look fancy. You just have to say something. Saying stuff is hard though. Like, writing is a very difficult skill. Anyone to get a photo, but to say something witty that gets other people to actually have an emotional response, to retweet or like it, not the easiest thing to do in the world. So I think those things would ultimately have to change in order for Twitter to become the behemoth that it can become. And until then, we don't know if this investment is going to be a good play for Cathie. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. Please leave a comment on if you use Twitter or not. I check all the comments, respond to all the comments. I actually have fun engaging with what people have to say. So I'll see you guys in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. And this was the first episode of Why is Cathie Wood buying XYZ, and my thoughts and analysis on it, and looking forward to doing more.